This is Tyrese Halliburton, and you're listening to Setting the Pace.
Happy Monday, Pacer Nation. Welcome back to another episode here of your go-to Pacers podcast, Setting the Pace. The boys are back. Facci and I are off our vacation, and we are here to talk all things Indiana Pacers basketball. And Facci, we're excited because Monday, as you're going to be listening to this, you're going to be hearing also from the entire roster at Pacers Media Day. So looking really forward to that. But before we get to Pacers Media Day, me and you thought, hey, let's come on and talk about some of these guys on the bench. Do you want to tell everybody what we're doing today?
So we are bringing back the Prove It segment from last week. This time we're going to be talking about the bench, which I think these are a lot of guys that have a lot to prove. When you're talking about the starters last week, you kind of got a good feel for who's who and what they're capable of. From the bench, there's a little bit more questions, maybe not enough answers. And I think that this is why the Prove It type of segment for the bench is going to be really interesting because there's a lot of guys that have big opportunities. But first, they got to prove it.
They definitely do. And I just want to ask you, because we did take a week off, anything exciting happened to you over the week?
I spent way too much money on housing stuff. We upgraded the house, in terms of just appliances, out with the old, in with the new. Things are good. Set up a lot of different stuff. So, my house is now feeling a lot more like a home. Other than that, I got a tooth taken out the previous week. That's no fun. So that finally healed. And life's been good. Other than that, kind of low key weekend, just a lot of football ahead of me as we're recording this on a Sunday. So I'm excited to lay low and kind of ease in to this next week. As all of a sudden, before you know it, basketball is going to be here.
I know, Foch, you definitely had a busy week, and I know that you said you've been just trying to get this house together. So it was the perfect opportunity to take this week off and get you that time you needed. And obviously, if people have paid attention to anything I've posted on social media, I didn't have like a busy week, but I did have a fun weekend. On Friday night, I drove to Youngstown, Ohio, Facci, and I got to see John Mayer live for the first time. Now, this is I think you've seen him twice already, you said, right?
And great, always puts on a great show.
Yeah. I was looking because he played back-to-back nights. He played in Youngstown, Ohio, and then went to Ann Arbor, Michigan, and played at Michigan Stadium. And I'll be honest with you, he did 14 songs for us in Youngstown, Ohio, only did 10 songs in Ann Arbor because he was there with Zach Bryan. So obviously wasn't the headliner, but I personally felt like, from what I got to see and listen to in terms of the set list, got the better show with him being the headliner in Youngstown. So really excited about that. I mean, I'll just tell you and anybody else listening, if you're interested in going to see somebody live, I think John Mayer is like right there, top of the list. Like, that was a bucket list item for me. Incredible musician, and the band that he has around him. I mean, it kind of reminded me of the Pacers a little bit because they all just work so well together, and it takes everybody doing their part to let him kind of be the star, which Tyrese Halliburton needed everybody else to do their part for him to be the star at the end of the game. So, just trying to make that cheesy connection between them and the Pacers, but it was really, really fun pot.
I would just say this. Show. When it came to putting, your money down, John Mayer proved it. He proved he is worth your money. He put on a show, and now you're, spreading the word. So, hey, John Mayer, his credibility is not at risk. Like I said, I've seen him twice. You just saw him, great performer. Looks like he put up some stats for you, got some shots up, AKA extra songs. Didn't hit you with the 10, he hit you with the 14. And that's a big difference. And that's really what you'll remember in the performance, that he went the extra mile for your show. So that's awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I won't bore anybody else with our music conversation or our vacation conversation. Let's get right into it. So who do you want to start with for today's Prove It?
You tell me. I mean, we can go a lot of different directions here.
Let's say last time we started with the centers and worked our way to the point guards. Maybe we do the inverse and start with the point guards and work our way to the centers.
All right. So you want to start with some TJ McConnell?
Let's start with TJ McConnell. I'm trying to think of the right word here, but the feature of the recent Crew car wash commercial. Did you see that?
Yep.
That was pretty special. So, TJ McConnell's getting endorsements now. Okay.
I'm here for it. I love it. I mean, like we said, TJ McConnell Day wasn't too far away, in I think last month or earlier this month for, when we threw out the first pitch. I mean, McConnell getting the recognition in Indiana, and I think that it's just like, I just have this image in my head that years from now, like, TJ McConnell will always get that standing ovation for any Pacer game that he attends. But in terms of my prove it, I'm going to say prove it that your best years are not behind you. And I'll do you one better. I think McConnell might have a career year. I truly think that TJ McConnell at age 33 might be heading towards a career year because he's going to have the opportunity to play more. The last time we saw TJ McConnell, he played his heart out in the NBA Finals, Game 7, and was arguably the only thing the Pacers had going in that third quarter. So I think if anything, knock on wood, was to ever happen to Andrew Nemhard, it's the McConnell show. So I think that despite his age, despite maybe being known for more of a rah-rah guy, off the court type of leader, I think TJ McConnell's play is going to be what speaks the loudest this year. And I think that this could very well be yet another career year for TJ McConnell.
Yeah, I would agree 100%. I think that this is one of those things where the prove it is all like so obvious for him. Like, just prove that you can kind of carry this load, even if it's bigger than it was previously. Because before we had to rely so much on Tyrese as the point guard, and now it's basically him and Nimhard are bust. And so he's got to be able to stay healthy. He's got to be able to get everybody else involved. I don't think they're going to extend his minutes very much. Maybe they might give him a minute or two more per game this upcoming season, but I know they don't want to put too much wear and tear on his body. This guy plays hard, and he can only play hard for certain, amounts of, at a time. So it's like you're looking at 16 minutes a game, and I know in the playoffs, like a lot of people were like, McConnell's balling. Why isn't he playing more? It's like the dude wears himself out to exhaustion, where it's like if you're playing NBA 2K, like his red is all the way down in terms of his stamina. It's like he's begging to come off the court because he just can only do it for so long. But I think that if he can prove, hey, I can actually take on a bigger role this year and help this team continue to try to win games at the highest pace possible, or get to the highest spot possible, it's gonna be doable. So I agree with you, Facci, on this one. I don't really think there's too much to add to TJ McConnell. Feel like he's kind of the boring one of this group.
Yeah, maybe just because like, he's gonna bring it. Like, he's gonna bring it energy-wise. You're not saying, "Prove it that you could develop into being a three-point shooter." No, alright, look, the time's
Right.
passed. It's just he is what he is. It's gonna take him 3 to 5 seconds basically to wind up for a three, and you don't want him to shoot too much more of that. So, one last thing to put a bow on McConnell, his minutes have gone down every single year, and last year was actually the least amount of minutes per game that he played, and it was the second most points per game he's ever averaged in a season. So
Wow.
he doesn't need to play, 25 minutes a night to be able to produce. This is someone that's going to give you everything he's got for every second that he's on the court. So,
Yeah, a very nice example of quality versus quantity.
yes. Yep, exactly. Who do you want to go to next?
Let's go Ben Sheppard.
All right. I'm going to say, and I've said this before, prove it that you could be, say, a 37% three-point shooter or better in this league. Like, if Sheppard's three-point game cannot evolve, then offensively, his ceiling is just something that he's going to bump his head on. I think that right now, like Ben Sheppard, like you're waiting for, he's going to hustle for every loose ball. He's going to defend really well, but like we've seen this man slump. And when he slumped hard from three. And I don't remember what some of those stats were, but it felt like there was a stretch last year where it's like, all right, Sheppard missed like 15 threes in a row over the course of however many games. Or it got to the point where you were almost rooting for him to just make one, just to like get the monkey off of his back and just be like, all right, you're back, you're good. And I feel like he's so much better than that. But we got to see it now. This is going to be year 3. I want to see that he's at least an above average three-point shooter, because for his first 2 years, he's been a below average three-point shooter. And I know that's not who he really is, but we got to see him prove it.
I mean, yeah, I think being a more consistent three-point shooter is huge.
Yeah.
But I think we know that he does that already too. So like, not as a consistent three-point shooter, but as a shooter, like that's what his like calling card is.
It's supposed to
I
be.
want to see him prove that he can put the ball on the floor a little bit more.
And that would be great too.
You know what I mean? Like, this is a guy that is so like one-dimensional offensively. It's catch and shoot or get rid of the ball as quick as possible. Like, this guy won't even look sometimes at the basket before he just passes the ball back up, because as Rick Carlisle, deemed him the soldier of this offense. He just runs and sprints to the corners, and he wants Mathurin to do that more and other guys to do that more, because Sheppard just gets what the offense is all about, and the spacing is what it's all about. So that's why he plays a lot, and he's actually a pretty good team defender and one-on-one defender. Like, he's not going to lock somebody up, but he's going to put some resistance up there, and then he's also going to buy into the team system and do whatever the schematics say. So offensively and defensively, he already does kind of like the team stuff you want him to do, but I just want him to prove that, hey, if I feel like this Johnny Furphy kid's coming up behind me, maybe taking my spot on this roster, and I really like playing for this team, how can I evolve as a player? And I think that I can prove that I belong in the rotation over Furphy if I learn how to put the ball on the floor a little bit more and become more of a two-dimensional scorer versus just a one-dimensional scorer. And I think that is going to help his game quite a bit if he can do that.
Look, Shep's a former point guard. He can put the ball down, but we just haven't seen it on an NBA level. So I think that, yeah, that would be really important. And just from like the 3-point, shots standpoint, rookie year, 31%. You could write that off. He's a rookie. Okay, whatever. Sophomore year, 34%. That's below average by all means. So I just feel like right now, we're in that mix of the two. If you're going to be a 3-point shooter, you got to be one that can be an above average 3-point shooter. But also, like, this is the year that you're going to have that potential opportunity to put the ball on the floor more. But yeah, a guy like Johnny Furphy is breathing down your neck. So, I'm excited to see what comes about of Ben Sheppard in year 3, because this is going to be a really big prove it year for him. Who do you want to go to next?
Yeah, so just like you mentioned, breathing down his neck is Johnny Furphy. Let's go to Johnny Furphy.
I think that's a
next
perfect
because we
segue.
want to keep Ben Sheppard on his heels here. Johnny Furphy's
Yep.
coming.
Hey, competition is what drives results. I love it. I'm a sales manager in my I don't want to say in my free time. That's what I'm doing right now. In my free time is podcasting. So in my full time job, that's what I am. And competition drives the best results. So for Johnny Furphy, prove it that despite how young you are, you can be an every night rotational player. We've seen enough flashes to know this kid absolutely has game. He has athleticism. It's only a matter of time before it's like this man's playing every single night, and we're talking about meaningful minutes. We saw him play some meaningful minutes as a rookie from time to time, but I feel like he could crack the rotation on a nightly basis. So I think it's only a matter of, is that this year or is it the following? I think it could be this year, but like this is the type of night where this type of season where like you're going to be given a really good opportunity. You could be taking Ben Sheppard's minutes. If there's any sort of knock on wood injury, Johnny Furphy is going to have to be playing on a nightly basis. And I feel like he's shown he can rebound. He's shown he can hit the three. He's shown that in summer league, if you want to call it whatever, tomahawk dunks, like he's got a lot of game and he's still just so young. But I still think that there's a scenario where he could be ready to be bringing it on a night-to-night basis.
They like him a lot, and that's the thing that based on all the comments we've heard from Pritchard and Buchanan and Ted Wu, and even Rick Carlisle has made comments about him. This is a guy that's going to be out there on the floor at times this season, and he's going to earn that spot. The one thing I want to see him prove, though, to me, Facci, like we've seen, okay, not a bad catch and shoot kind of guy, not a bad rebounder at all for his size. He's very big for his size, especially playing more of the 2 and the 3. I also just want to say the thing that I like about his game is he's not afraid to put the ball on the floor. Like I just mentioned with Sheppard, he doesn't do that much. Furphy will put the ball on the floor, but then it's like, what does he do next? And I think that's what I want to see improve. Improve that basketball IQ and prove that you have what it takes to be more than just a drive straight to the basket kind of, decision maker kind of player. I want to see him be more of a facilitator because I've seen it once or twice in summer league, but that was about it. It was like one of the first plays of the game. I think they were playing the Cavs. I forget which team they played first in summer league, but he drove to the basket and kicked it out to 3 for Ray J. Dennis, and Ray J. Dennis hit a 3. And it was like, okay, if he can do more of that stuff, like that's going to make him more lethal. But a lot of times he kind of get himself caught in the middle of nowhere and trying to figure out where to go. And I feel like if he's going to make a decision, I'm going to attack the rim and dunk on Noah Essengay. I'm going to attack the paint and kick it out to Ray J for a 3. Let me see more of that. Don't go in there without a direction and just driving to drive. So prove it that you can be a better decision maker on the fly.
Mm-hmm. And I'm just so excited about like what the long-term potential is for him. But I think that this is an opportunity that's like, hey, we're going to see a lot more Johnny Furphy this year. I'm happy that we got to see him as a rookie because that's something we didn't really expect to see coming into the season. But he was even viewed as someone that was like arguably one of the steals of the draft. Falling to the second round was something that I think a lot of teams are going to regret because this man is far from second round talent. Hey, I'm not going to say that he could ever be like an Andrew Nembhard, but when you think of those two players falling to the second round, that's going to be something that teams are going to regret for a long time. All right, moving on next.
Real quick, Facci, let's go ahead and take a quick commercial break, and then we will come back and we will touch on the final players here on the bench we want to get to. All right, we are back after that commercial break. And Facci, we're going to go ahead and change it up from going in order of the positions. We've already done our TJ McConnell point guard and then our guards with Furphy and Sheppard. Now we're going to get to our bigs, but instead of starting with our 3s and our 4s, let's start with our big men at the 5 position. We got 2 guys that are kind of competing here for this backup big spot, J. Huff and James Wiseman. Which one do you want to start with?
Let's go James Wiseman. So this is something that could be a little bit out of his control, but I'm just going to simply put it, prove it that you can stay healthy. I think for James Wiseman, it sounds harsh, but I did the math and look at this. James Wiseman's missed a lot of time in his young career. He missed all of his second season and he only played 84 games in his first 3 seasons. That doesn't even include the Achilles tear last year in the first game of the season. So he's missed a lot of time. But when you look at him physically, he's impressive. I mean, he's really about 7'1". He's still young. It feels like on any given night, I mean, we're going off of 5 minutes here. Last year, we were impressed. Hey, those are a good 5 minutes for the Pacers. We liked what we saw in preseason. There's a chance that he could potentially even take the starting center job if everything goes right. But there's also a chance that he could be playing in Europe the following year. It's really all over the place. And I feel like the Pacers obviously want to give him a second chance. Despite trading him, they knew what they were doing. They kept him, being able to rehab at the center, brought him back, like all of this stuff to be able to give him that next opportunity. And I'm really excited about this opportunity. It's a big one. But if you can't stay healthy in this league, we've talked about it, the best ability is availability. And that is something that James Wiseman has arguably never been able to do consistently throughout his career.
And I think that right there, Facci, is the reason why you see Tony Bradley still on that non-guaranteed
Yeah.
contract coming into training camp. Look, I talked about this on Thursday. Not sure if you had a chance to listen. It was just like a 10-minute recap of what everything we had been going on the last week. So it wasn't very long. But basically, some of the conversations that I had on Thursday, it was like, well, most of the time when you look at the Pacers' two-way position, right, they always have that extra big right there in case there is and in case of emergency type of thing. You don't have that this year. Last year you had Enrique Freeman. The year before that, Oscar Tshiebwe. Tony Bradley is kind of filling that role, but in a different spot where he's actually taking up a 15th man on the roster spot. So I understand why he's still there. Rick Carlisle said he was the team's best rebounder at that position in the offseason. So when you've already got Carlisle saying that about Bradley and how he kind of fit into this system and kind of helped the defense, I'm not saying he's going to beat out Wiseman for the third string center position. I'm just saying that because of Wiseman's inability to prove he can stay healthy throughout his career, it is kind of nice to have that insurance. But ultimately, I think it comes down between Bradley and DeLon Wright or whoever they decide to look at the point guard position, because I do think they might want to value that. But if they feel like, hey, we can get by with it for a little bit with what we have, let's bring Tony back just in case. We don't like the DeLon Wright fit in preseason, whatever. We'll kind of weigh our options here. Maybe Monty Morris gets over that calf injury. They can bring him in for a look and see what he looks like and move on from TB. But I'm just saying, I wouldn't rule him out completely like we have been. I know we've been very dismissive. We kind of laughed about it a lot too. But I think it does make sense. And you're talking about Wiseman brought that to my attention. But for Wiseman, for me, it's just proved that you can stay in this league. And it's very similar. And it goes right in line with what you're saying about prove you can stay healthy. I just feel like opportunity here is potentially high. I don't know. Can you outplay Jay Huff? Can you outplay Isaiah Jackson? It's not like the bar is that significantly high, but it is still, those guys are in front of you right now. And this Achilles injury is a little bit of a question mark, and we'll see how it impacts Isaiah Jackson. Jay Huff's the only center that is expected to get into the rotation that isn't dealing with some kind of injury. So that is something to keep an eye on, and Jay Huff does spread the floor. So what exactly to me is James Wiseman? I don't know right now. I feel like he's such an unknown, but he's a massive body. Can he become a better shooter? Can he become a better rebounder? There's so much for him to prove, but that's why I'm just saying prove that you belong in this league, because if you don't, like you mentioned, it's going to be Europe, and it's not because of injuries. It's going to be because you're just not talented enough or you don't have the right work ethic to prove that you can be an everyday type of player in the league.
A couple months ago when we had Tony East on the show, we talked about how many years does a top 5 pick get before they start to no longer be, considered, hey, it's a top 5 pick. And this is it. We threw out a random number, 5, and this is where we're at now, where it's like, this is finally where the clock is ticking to say, "Okay, yeah, once upon a time, he was the number 2 overall pick, but that only goes for oh so long." So, like, this is the biggest year of his career because James Wiseman never really got that payday that he was looking for or anything of the sort. So, hopefully everything works out. A huge opportunity ahead of him. And like you said, look, the bar is set higher, but it's not to say that he has no chance of being able to take the job. He could. Like you said, one of the 2 guys ahead of him has the same Achilles injury that he has.
Yeah.
But, it's all about, hey, who's going to be available? And I think that remains to be seen. So moving over to his competition, Jay Huff. I'm saying prove it that you could be a starter in this league. I think the perception of Jay Huff, around the leagues, hey, very capable backup big. Hey, he can stretch the floor, shoot the 3, protect the rim. But, that might be it. I don't know. I think there could be something here with Jay Huff. I saw you tweet it out. I agree. The Memphis Grizzlies might be kicking themselves in the behind right now. No Zach Edey, no Jaren Jackson. They got injuries. I know.
Brandon Clark's hurt too.
Yep. I know a center they would love to have. Man, Jay Huff, did they fumble Jay Huff? I'll put it this way. Maybe I'm wrong, but I don't think so. I think Jay Huff is 75% of Miles Turner for a 12th of the price. Think about that. A 12th of the price? I mean, this is bargain bin stuff over here. I think that this is the perfect year to unleash them. And I think that Jay Huff is we've talked about it. It's no surprise. Like he could be the favorite to be the center. And it's not just because of, like Isaiah Jackson might make more, have more familiarity with the Pacers. Jay Huff might take that job and he might not give it back.
Oh, it's so funny to me is how excited you got there talking about saving money.
Look, I love to save a good buck or two. I really do. And when I look at Jay Huff, I see that is the price is right. That's what I see.
You said 75% of Miles Turner for 1/12 the price. I've
Yep.
never seen you get more excited on the show.
Dude, that's a good deal.
Jay Huff is everyone's got nothing bad to say about him. Even if you listen to any other podcast, they're like, yeah, they got Jay Huff. Like, he's good. Nobody says, like, this guy sucks. So
No.
it's just kind of like, can you prove that the small sample size that you have in this league is something that can be sustained for an 82 game season? I think that is a true prove it for me because it's like, I like this guy. I think he's very talented. Been a journeyman for a reason. There's a reason why, like, the Grizzlies were like, we'll move on from Huff and get Jock Landau. Like, really? Like,
Yeah.
that doesn't make me feel excited about him now that if I'm a Pacer fan, like, why would the Grizzlies, who already have like 15 centers, want to cut him to get another center that I think's not that good? Like, I don't think Jock Landau's that good. So anyway, I'm not that concerned about Jay Huff. I don't know if he'll start or not. I think Ijax might still get that nod. More familiarity with the system. I think they like his potential. They gave him the most money, but I could see Jay Huff starting every game if he wins it out in preseason because we've seen Isaiah Jackson lose battles in preseason. Remember Jalen Smith?
Yep.
Oh, man. Jalen Smith's a third-string center on the Bulls now. So it's like Isaiah Jackson's grown a lot, but I do want to see what Jay Huff can bring because I think there is something there, Facci. I really do.
I do. I agree. I'm right there with you. Jay Huff's got something. We don't necessarily know what it is or how consistent it'll be, but there's enough there for us to be very intrigued that, hey, you know what? Say he's not our starting center for the year. I feel like there's enough talent to know that you found your backup center on an absolute, bargain of a contract while you could still look to upgrade that position later on. But we have enough to be intrigued, and that is exactly what we are.
All right, let's move over to probably the second longest tenured guy. No, maybe not. I don't know. What year did he come in?
Obi Toppin is I believe you're talking about right now. Is that who
year
you're
3?
Yeah, this is year 3. So
it's
there
the same as
some
Sheppard
turnover, but and Mathurin and Nemhard. Oh, actually, no.
They're starting though. That's
Yeah.
what I'm saying.
Okay. Yeah. So off the bench.
I'm saying second longest tenured off the bench, but really not technically because Jarus and Sheppard were drafted before he was traded here.
So, hey, look, a couple years ago, there was a lot of turnover, but now you have a lot of guys that have now been here for 3 years or so. And I think that's when, like, your team starts to get into, like, real chemistry and real rhythm. So, Obi Toppin, I'm gonna say prove it that you can create your own shot more. Look, Obi has been one of the top scorers in transition. That's exactly why Indiana went out to get him in the first place. They felt like, "Hey, we're gonna pair him with Tyrese Haliburton. We're gonna pair him with our system." And at the time, Bruce Brown was there. So you had, like, 3 of the top transition players. And Obi's a fantastic rim runner, lob threat, great. At times, real good three-point shooter, a little bit streaky. At times, we saw him shoot 40% from three. Then we saw that come down about 36% last year. More volume, less accuracy. But there was times that I felt like he was kind of just waiting in the corner, like waiting for his shot. You're not gonna have Tyrese now. We know that Obi Toppin, once upon a time, was a national player of the year in college. Like, I do think that and we've talked about this, he's tailored his game to fit into the NBA rather than for him to stand out. And I do think there is more. Like, he's had games where he's gone off for 25 to 30 points. It doesn't happen often, but he's had those times. I think that Obi Toppin could put the ball on the floor more, look for a shot, be a little bit more aggressive. And it would not surprise me if he had once again a career season from a scoring standpoint. I think that Obi could honestly probably take a leap from like that 10.5 points per game or so to maybe, 13 or more, off the bench. And that would be a pretty solid improvement of about 3 points per game more.
I went back and listened to our interview that we did with Chad Buchanan earlier in the summer. I reshared that on Saturday, so if anybody wants to kind of get a revisit of what was said there, nothing has changed really from that conversation from then to now in terms of transactional moves. But what he had to say about Obi Toppin to me was really fascinating because he said that they finally saw Obi kind of settle into his role towards like that last fourth of the season, and he really started to flourish there in the playoffs, and they really liked the way that he played. And so they said they liked how he played last year. That's why they brought him back, but like he took another step, they felt like, in terms of his development. And so I just think that Obi Toppin is one of those guys. You might see him close a lot of games this year. We've talked about that. And so I want to see him prove that this is another year where he can become better and better, because this guy is a national player of the year. He was drafted pretty high in the lottery by the Knicks. Didn't really pan out in New York. They didn't play the right offensive system for him. And I feel like from the draft experts that I've heard talk about him, it was always going to be about fit for Obi Toppin in the NBA. It was never going to be like national player of the year. This guy can play on any team, plug and play right away. Like, that's just not who he is. He's a bench guy. He's like a high-end bench guy. Sixth, seventh man. Could start, could close games. Like, he has that level of talent. I just don't think he's ever going to be like this reliable starter on a 82-game regular season. Like, that's why you go out and get a Pascal Siakam. He's not at that level. And hate to make comparisons to the Bucks, but he kind of reminds me of like the Bobby Portis of the Bucks for the Pacers.
I think that's kind of fair. Bobby Portis is a good player in this league, but he has his limitations as to what he is. Like, every team, like Bobby Portis could go to any team and contribute towards like winning basketball and things like that. But yeah, when you have him as a starter, you start to look and say, like, we could probably upgrade that position a little bit better. You have him coming off of the bench. That's a major asset to your team.
Yeah, and that means what I just want to see him do. Prove that you can be more of an everyday guy, more reliable than you have been in previous years, because they're going to need him to be more reliable. And I know you went through everything in terms of like getting better, whatnot. So it's just, this is a very talented player that I think is probably your second best big. If you're including power forwards and centers, I think that behind Siakam, that's probably him next. And you want your best players on the court to end games. And if he shoots the ball well, like he has for the majority of his career, and figures out how to be a little bit more, decisive in terms of getting to the basket at times and taking advantage of those opportunities. Like when we saw them close them out, the Knicks out in game one, like that decision to drive to the basket and dunk and get fouled, like that was incredible. So just more of that kind of stuff. I just think that Obi Toppin is a guy that can close games in the clutch and you feel good about it. And he's taken a step defensively as well.
No, he has, and you wanna just see, like you always know, like, there's something there, but I just feel like from a consistent standpoint, it's always hard for him to really put it together. Like, I mean, let's I hate to use this example, but we have to. Game 6 against the Thunder in the NBA Finals, that man dropped 20 points. He had 20
Good.
points, 6 of 12 shooting, 4 of 7 from 3. Game 7, he had 0. He had
Yeah,
0.
the Tyrese thing threw him off.
I think it did, and we've talked about that, and, like, look, that anyone could have pass the ball to Tyrese in that scenario. So like there's literally nothing to blame him on, but he was definitely shook from that and it affected his play. But we've seen those type of performances where like he'll come out there and score 20 points and then the next game drop 5.
Yeah.
And I'm looking at this against Cleveland. Game 3 he had 5 points. Game 4 he had 20. Game 5 he had 5. So it just shows that it's always kind of this like up and down with Obi Toppin. I feel like if he can be a little bit more consistent, look for his own shot, do that, I think he can really kind of settle into like, hey, you are absolutely one of our top bench players, like a top 6, 7 guy, just like you said. And instead of being like the whole like, well, if you're looking to make a deal, Obi's salary makes the most sense. Like, no, you want him to be like essential for this team, like the absolute. We need him, and I think that right now his consistency sometimes is a little all over the place. So, leaving on next, that's the guy that like, man, this guy, you can make an argument that maybe he's the X factor. This is someone like if he takes off, Indiana for years to come is going to be great. That's Jarus Walker.
And this is our last player as well.
This is the last one. This is the last one. And when it comes to proving it, there's probably a lot that could be proved here. But I'm just going to say, like, prove it that you can be that, like, defensive Swiss Army knife that Indiana drafted you at 8th overall to be. If you and I remember, I mean, man, we had Ryan Hammer on and a few other, draft experts. At the time, in that draft class, Jarus Walker was looked at as arguably the best defensive prospect in that draft. You can make an argument and say, well, there's Victor Wembanyama. Okay. Yeah. No one debated Wemby not going 1 or anything like that. But Jarus Walker was looked at as this guy might be the best overall defender in that draft. And I feel like he's someone that, we viewed maybe could one day be potentially guarding the opposing team's best player or playing and defending multiple positions. Going into year 3, we're actually kind of wondering which position is he? They've kind of moved him around from power forward to small forward to, at times they were even tossing around the idea, could he play a little bit at the 2? Like it's just been all over the place. And I think that for right now, you've seen at times he could defend well. He could pass well for his position. He could shoot the 3 ball well, but you're still wondering, is he a starter quality player in this league or is he more of a reserve rotational guy? And part of it's out of his control. He's been playing behind Pascal Siakam. We already mentioned Obi Toppin's there. Like there have been guys ahead of him, but this is going to be a really big prove it year where you could say, okay, hey, you know what? Last year he got more playing time. Now it's year 3. Like, what is your elite skill set? And then to me, that still remains kind of a little bit unknown. So I'm just being like, prove it. Or could you be that defensive, player that we all hoped you could be? Or are we going to maybe learn that the ceiling's a little bit lower and you're just a really good, player off the bench?
You're talking about a 40% 3-point shooter, and you're saying, what have you been elite at so far? I would say that's been his elite level of skill has been his 3-point shooting since he entered the league, which is weird because when he entered the league, nobody expected him
not at all
to be that high level of 3-point shooter. In fact, him and Ben Sheppard were kind of like the polar opposite of what they were coming into the draft. Sheppard was this knockdown 3-point shooter, not a great defender, and Jarus was the complete opposite, and then they've done the opposite roles throughout their 2 years in the league. So I think it is very fascinating that continues to be a talking point with Jarus, is just like, is this 3-point shooting real? But every single time we have Caitlin Cooper on, or we have somebody from the front office on, or Rick Carlisle speaks about Jarus Walker, it always comes back to the same thing. Can he play at a high level of competitiveness, intensity, force on a consistent basis? Because too often you'll see that from Jarus, where he'll play great and then he gets down. And when I said I listened to Chad's interview with us, I loved hearing him talk about Jarus because he was really passionate. He said there's times where he gets down on himself because he is a younger player, and he always is very critical of what he's doing in terms of the good and the bad, and just like having these, big swings in terms of like how he's feeling about himself and his confidence and things like that. So that plays a factor. But the other thing that he said is sometimes young guys, when they come into the game, they want to get the ball and they want to score and they want to impact it and prove that they belong on the court. He said, sometimes the best way you can prove that you belong on the court is by doing what the team needs you to do. And by hearing that, like specifically, like talking about Jarus saying that, I want to see Jarus prove that he can fit into the system that they need him to, like, similar to Mathurin, right? Fit into the system how they need you to fit in. Do the little things that Sheppard does that gets him all this playing time, but also prove that you can be a more consistent player at that high level of intensity with that force, because if you don't, you're going to find yourself on the bench. And there is a player that's sitting right there behind you. We talked about him kind of like breathing down the neck of Ben Sheppard. Johnny Furphy plays at that force every single game.
He definitely does.
If Jarus Walker doesn't bring it, there's going to be opportunities for Johnny Furphy to kind of get into the rotation if Jarus isn't doing what Carlisle needs him to do. However, I think that Jarus has such a high ceiling that if we look at this team in 3 years and they're talking about Jarus being the starting 3, I wouldn't be surprised.
No, and I don't want to say it's like Jermaine O'Neal-esque, but like we've talked about before, when Jermaine entered the league, coming in with the Blazers, there was a lot of quality players ahead of him. It was really hard to get playing time. And, Jarus and Jermaine, both young players coming into the league. I feel like for Walker, like the talent's there. And sure, if you threw him on like Brooklyn, where he could play, 25 minutes a night, he'll show a lot more. But he played 10 minutes a night, very inconsistently his rookie year. And last year he averaged just under 16 minutes. He did play in 75 games, and I feel like he started to really catch on late. Like, I feel like Jarus Walker was playing good basketball later in the season. Obviously gets hurt against the Knicks, and that was really unfortunate. Would have loved to have been able to have him out there and then be a finals. Can't say it would have made the difference of winning a championship or not, but would have been great to have an extra body out there, extra, good 3-point shooter. So, like, yeah, I'm not so worried about the 3-point style. I do feel like he's, to an extent, played the role that he needs to play, but, like, at some point you want to see 8th overall, potential from him, and I think that could be the year that he really does break out, and if he doesn't break out, I think you're gonna have a better understanding as to, hey, you know what? Maybe this is someone who, I don't know, either has a lower ceiling than we thought or anything of the sort, but still just so young. I mean, he's 22. He just turned 22 years old earlier in September. Like, we got to give this guy some time, and I think that he's going to have that opportunity this year. But when it comes to, you know, scanning the trade market, if Jarus Walker's not going to be able to be who he needs to be, like, this is kind of in year 3 where you start to, look around. And I hope that Jarus can blossom and become that player in Indiana, because it would unlock a lot. And he's got a lot of great skill sets that could be really good, but it's all just a matter of, like, can you do it consistently night in, night out? And I think that we've seen the flashes. Sometimes we've seen the consistency, but we've also definitely seen the inconsistencies.
I think there's a reason why Pascal has been spending so much time with him. I think Pascal believes in his talent.
I agree with that.
And, Chad Buchanan mentioned this on Thursday during our press conference around like 3:00, that they had just played pickup ball before they came down and stuff, and they were watching the team practice, and he said Jarus was like the best player on the court.
Ooh, I love to hear that.
It's just one of those things where it's like Jarus has that talent, and that's why I think Carlisle and his coaching staff hold him to a higher level of accountability. It's the same thing for Mathurin. They hold these guys to a higher level of accountability because they need that discipline to be established a little bit more in their basketball careers. And it's just like, they're so young, they're so talented, they've been so good for such a young age. Now it's all about putting it together, where Sheppard kind of walks in, older guy, kind of been around the college, landscape for a little bit, understands, like, I'm just trying to fit in, I'm not trying to be somebody. Nembhard, kind of the same thing, played a little bit more college basketball than Mathurin, and kind of came into a role where he was expected to be on the outs, like a third-string guy, and then all of a sudden, boom, Carlisle goes from third-string point guard to starting shooting guard next to Halliburton in, like, moments. And people are like, what's going on with Nembhard starting as a rookie? And it just kind of shows you, like, Carlisle definitely knows how to evaluate talent, and I know people get very frustrated with Carlisle at times for kind of holding young players back and whatever, but, like, he doesn't hold young players back if he trusts them. And I think that's the thing. It's like, he will give them opportunities to earn that trust. They just have to do it. The fact that he called Mathurin up and said, I want you to know that coming into the season, you're going to be the starting 2 guard with Ty out. The fact that he mentioned on Zach Lowe's podcast, as soon as him and Tyrese had that first conversation at dinner, he said, I want you to look me in the eye. Trust me. I'm giving you the keys to the team to run the offense. I don't want to call plays. Now he's like, I believe in you. Like, trust me. And I think that from that first moment with him and Tyrese, and look what it led to. More guys should look at that example and say, okay, if I trust coach and I do what he asked me to do, I'm only going to make myself better and I'm going to make this team better, which is going to make me more valuable to other teams around the league if they see what I'm doing. So a lot of rambling here, but I'm just saying this is where Jarus has a great opportunity. Year 3 takes guys a little bit of time to kind of get acclimated with the league and the system and everything like that. You've had 2 years under your belt. Come on, let's go. Let's see what we got.
Whatever happens, the last thing I want to hear is anyone blaming Carlisle for anything. Like after what we just went through last year, I don't want to hear he's holding so and so back. He knows what he's doing. All right, so like,
We'll hear it.
you
We
know,
will
yeah,
hear it. They're holding
we
this whole
will
behind
hear.
my back.
We will. If we're like we dip below 500, people are gonna be like, "I'm telling you, the game's passed Carlisle by. Like he's just too old." It's like that is not the case. So let's just
Halliburton was carrying him.
What was that? Yeah, exactly. He can't win without Halliburton. You know, it's like, look, we're gonna take a dip without one of the best point guards in the league, but nonetheless, I think these are all great points for us to, ask these players to prove it this year. And I think that a lot of these guys have a lot of potential. Like there wasn't someone that we're like, ah man, I mean, what could he really do? Like, it's like, no, for a lot of these players, it's one or two things that if they do this right, like their game could really take off. And that could make a huge difference for Indiana. So I'm really excited about this bench because I think that this bench has guys that could be starters potentially in this league. Like J Huff could be potentially a starting center. Obi Toppin could be a starter. Jarus Walker in the right situation could flourish, as a starter. There's a lot of good quality. TJ McConnell is like, has been one of the better backup point guards in this league for a while. So I'm excited about what's to come, and I'm excited to finally get some answers on some of these questions as the season goes on.
Absolutely, Facci. Well, that's going to wrap it up for today's episode. If you guys are looking forward to some Media Day content, I'll be back tomorrow with Dustin Dopirak from the Indy Star to cover all of that, Facci, and I will be gathering later in the week to talk about more stuff that goes on during training camp. I just want to get you guys some stuff after Media Day with our good friend Dustin, who does a great job covering the Pacers for the Star. So that's going to be tomorrow's episode. But Facci, if you're hoping the Pacers come into Media Day and just hit this training camp harder than any other of the 29 teams in the league, then hit me with those 3 words.
Let's go Pacers.